All right, so we're diving into this guidebook all about attracting those angel investors.
Okay.
And you're trying to get that business going right. And everyone knows that angels, they can offer you more than just the money. They
Right.
can be mentors, connections, all of that insider knowledge that can really help you.
Yeah, can be a huge difference.
So this guide we got here says it's going to unlock the secrets of what they're looking for. So should we put it to the test?
Let's do it.
Okay, so what's the first thing that stood out to you?
Well, it jumps right into the mindset of the angel investor right from the start.
Okay.
And it emphasizes understanding their goals like right off the bat.
Yeah.
They're not just tossing money around hoping for the best.
Right, they want to see results.
Exactly. They want to see certain things before they'll commit.
Okay, so let's not beat around the bush here. What are these angel investors hunting for?
Well, they're really laser focused on four key elements.
Okay.
And the first one, and probably the most important, is high growth potential.
High growth potential.
We're not talking about a slow, steady climb here.
Yeah.
Angels are looking for businesses that can explode.
Mhm.
I mean, think 10x, even 100 times growth in just a few years.
100 times growth.
Yeah, those hockey stick growth curves you hear about.
Wow, so that's a steep climb, but wouldn't that depend on the industry and the stage the business is at?
Absolutely. The specifics are going to vary, but the core principle is the same.
Yeah, okay.
They want to see a clear path to huge growth really fast.
Gotcha.
It's not enough to just show potential. You got to have the data market analysis, a really compelling story that shows how you're going to reach those big goals.
So it's not just about a good pitch. They want to see the numbers too.
Exactly.
Okay, makes sense. So what else were they looking for?
So the second crucial element is a strong and scalable business model.
Okay, so what does that even mean?
This means your business can grow like crazy without hitting those big roadblocks.
Okay, I think I'm starting to understand.
Think of a company like Netflix. They started with those DVD rentals,
Oh yeah, I remember those.
but they had a model that let them move right into streaming and expand everywhere.
So that built-in adaptability, that's what they're looking for.
Exactly. Investors want that.
So it's more than just having that great product or service. It's got to be the whole business expanding really quickly.
Right.
I'm getting it now. Okay, so third on the checklist, what is it?
Okay, so this one might sound kind of weird at first,
Yeah.
but it's a clear exit strategy.
An exit strategy.
Angel investors aren't looking to park their money forever.
Oh, right.
They're usually looking to get their investment back plus profit within 5 to 7 years.
So that makes sense.
So that could be an acquisition, an IPO, or another liquidity event.
So they need to know how they get their money back in the end.
Right. They're taking a lot of risk on early stage companies.
Yeah, that's true. All right, hit me with the fourth element, the final one.
Okay, so the last one is all about the people behind the idea.
The people.
A passionate and capable team.
Okay.
Investors are just as invested in the founders as they are in the business itself. They want to see a team that's not only totally into their vision, but also has the skills, experience, and the drive to beat all the challenges of, building a startup.
It's like that saying, bet on the jockey, not the horse.
Exactly.
And this really reminds me of the Airbnb story,
Oh, yeah.
They had so much rejection at the beginning, but they stuck with their vision, and eventually that got them investors.
Yeah. Airbnb is a perfect example.
Mm-hmm.
Their idea, renting out air mattresses, wasn't exactly glamorous.
Yo.
But they showed traction and hustle, and that really convinced investors that they were onto something big.
I think it's a good lesson for anyone looking for investment. You can't just have the good idea. You have to show that you can actually make it happen.
You got to prove it.
And that leads us to the next big thing. In this guide, crafting a pitch deck that will really grab an investor's attention.
Right. It has to stand out.
So what needs to be in there?
Well, each pitch is unique, but there are some core parts that investors want to see. Your deck has to clearly explain the problem you're solving, your solution,
Okay.
your business model, the size of the market opportunity.
Makes sense.
Any traction, you've got information about your team
Right.
and your financials and projections.
Okay.
Think of it like a roadmap, guiding investors through your vision and proving why your business deserves their investment.
So it's kind of a balance between the big picture and the hard evidence.
Yes, exactly.
Now, I can't help but think of WhatsApp.
Okay.
Their pitch focused on user growth, that huge potential of mobile messaging, and their lean, talented team.
Yeah, they had a good story.
And investors really responded to that. What makes you think this guidebook can help someone write their own success story?
Well, what I like about this guide is that it doesn't just tell you what to put in it.
Okay.
It gives advice on how to present your story in a way that connects with investors, emotionally.
Okay.
It's about using storytelling to make your pitch informative and inspiring.
I see the potential here, but a great pitch deck is just the first step, right? Yeah.
You got to get it to the right people.
That's where the networking comes in.
Networking? I think that's a scary word for a lot of people.
I know, it can be intimidating.
This guidebook doesn't try to make it sound easy, does it?
Not at all. It stresses how important it is to use your network to reach those angel investors.
Okay.
It's not just who you know, but who knows you.
I like that.
Angel investors, they often go for recommendations from people they already trust.
Okay.
So a warm introduction from a mutual connection can be way more powerful than a cold email.
Oh, yeah, I bet. So it's about using your current network and then building genuine connections from there.
Exactly.
I know people feel like they don't have the right connections, but this guide wants you to think outside the box, right?
Yeah, I want you to map out your entire network.
Good.
Former colleagues, classmates, mentors, advisors. You never know where that key connection will come from.
It's about being smart and proactive with your networking.
Exactly.
And it reminds you that building relationships is an ongoing thing, not just when you need money.
Makes me think of Instagram's founders.
Oh, yeah.
How they use their tech connections to get to investors like Chris Sacca.
Networking was key for them.
So it's a good argument for putting in the time and effort to build a good network. But even with the great pitch and the connections, there's one more thing this book keeps talking about.
What's that?
Traction.
You can't escape it?
I guess not.
It's not enough to talk about your great idea. You have to show investors that your business is gaining traction.
So you have to prove it's going somewhere?
Exactly. They want to see real proof of progress.
So how do you do that?
Well, traction can take a lot of forms.
Okay.
Like, do you have early revenue? Are users engaging with your product? Have you gotten positive feedback even if your product is still in development?
Right.
You can show market research pre-orders, early partnerships that show there's demand.
This makes me think of Dropbox.
What about it?
They didn't just talk about file sharing. They let potential investors try out the platform early on.
They gave them a taste.
That was a smart move.
It was a great example of showing traction. They didn't just tell investors about it.
Yeah, they let them see it for themselves.
It created a real connection between the idea and what it could be.
I bet that early access got them a lot of buzz from investors.
Oh, sure.
It makes you wonder what you could offer investors to show them your progress. But let's change gears a bit.
Okay.
This book also talks about building those lasting relationships with investors. Why is that so important?
Well, you have to realize that angel investors are more than just money.
Right.
They can be amazing mentors. They offer guidance, connections, and support that last longer than their first investment.
So it's about thinking of them as partners in your success.
Exactly.
I think a lot of entrepreneurs, especially new ones, might get so caught up in getting the funding that they forget about building those relationships.
It's a common mistake.
Yeah.
This guide emphasizes how important it is to build rapport and trust with those potential investors.
Okay.
It's about showing that you're not just there for the money, but you're committed to the long term.
Right.
And that you want to learn and grow with your investors.
This reminds me of Mark Cuban and his investment in the Dallas Mavericks.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't just about the team's potential. It was about the relationship he thought he could build with the management.
Exactly.
It really shows how shared vision and trust can get you investment.
Investors want to be confident in who they're backing. They're not just looking for a good business, but people they can trust and support.
So it's not just the pitch, but showing your passion, your commitment, and your willingness to learn and grow with your investors.
Absolutely.
And speaking of learning, this guidebook isn't afraid to talk about risk.
Yeah, it dives right into understanding risk tolerance, both from the investor side and yours.
That can be confusing.
Yeah.
Aren't angel investors risk takers by nature?
Well, yes.
So why would they care about lowering risk?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
They're willing to bet on new companies, but they're not reckless.
Okay.
They want to see that you've thought about the potential problems and have a plan to fix them.
So it's about balance.
Right? Calculated risks, not blind leaps of faith.
So you have to explain the risks, but also show how you'll deal with them.
Right. And this leads to another important thing in the guide, structuring a deal that benefits both sides.
Okay, let's get into the details.
Right.
What are some key things this guide says about making a deal that works for the entrepreneur and the investor?
So it talks about the idea of a convertible note.
Convertible note.
It's pretty common in early stage investing.
Okay.
It's basically a loan that turns into equity in the company when they raise more funding.
Okay, I see.
It keeps the early valuation simple and gives investors a clear path to ownership.
So it gets things moving without getting stuck in complicated valuations.
Yeah, exactly.
This book could really help people with those tough negotiations.
Definitely.
It's all about finding a structure that works for everyone's goals.
Right. And don't forget, successful deals are built on trust and being transparent.
Being open is so important, especially with money. And speaking of successful deals, I can't help but think of those early Google investors.
Right.
Their shares made them a fortune when the company went public.
It's a good example.
It shows how important it is to get a fair deal that matches the company's potential.
Google's success is a testament to what angel investing can do.
Yeah.
But it's also a reminder that getting the right deal structure is key to making sure everyone benefits.
So both sides should feel good about the deal and want the company to grow.
Exactly.
And that brings us to another resource. This guide recommends a bunch of books for entrepreneurs.
Oh, yeah, those are great.
They cover so many topics, from the mindset to the details of angel investing and the whole world of business.
It's a lot of information.
They're full of good advice for any stage of business.
Yeah, it's helpful.
So it's not just about getting the money, it's about knowing how to use it to build a good, strong business.
You got to learn.
And if all the books, one really grabbed my attention.
Which one?
The Lean Startup by Ries.
Lean Startup.
This one's a must-read for any entrepreneur, especially those starting out. It's all about making a basic product, getting it to users, quickly getting feedback, and then improving based on real data.
It's a good approach.
It's about using data to build a business, which matches what the guidebook says about proving your idea and showing traction.
It goes together.
I think that's a good place to stop. For now, we've covered so much already.
Oh, yeah.
We talked about what motivates angel investors, how to make a good pitch, how to build relationships, and even how to structure deals.
That's a lot.
And we're not done yet. Stay tuned for part 2.
That's going to be good.
We'll go deeper into some of the specific tips from this guidebook, and we'll explore how you can use all this in your own business journey.
You know, one thing that really jumped out at me from this guide was that idea of offering investors a real experience. Remember that Dropbox thing we talked about?
Yeah.
It's not just about the pitch deck. It's about letting investors really feel the value of what you're building.
It's like giving them a backstage pass.
Exactly. Instead of just telling them, you're letting them see it for themselves.
So you're making it real tangible.
Yeah, and think about the impact of letting an investor actually try out your app or your service, or even just see a prototype.
You're not just showing them the features, you're letting them feel the impact.
Right, you're creating advocates, not just investors.
When they experience it themselves, they're more invested in you succeeding.
It becomes a shared journey.
I really like this idea of an experience instead of just a presentation.
Me too.
It fits with everything we've talked about.
Yeah.
Understanding investors, building relationships, and showing traction.
It all connects.
It's a powerful way to show that your idea is more than just an idea.
It brings it to life.
And speaking of bringing things to life, this guide also talks about telling a good story.
Oh yeah, stories are important.
We need the numbers and data, but that doesn't always get people excited.
Right.
How does this guide say you should build a narrative that really grabs investors?
It's all about connecting with them emotionally. You have to paint a picture of the future you're building and show them how their money helps make that happen.
So they're not just investing in a company, they're investing in a movement.
Exactly, something bigger than themselves.
This whole conversation has been so insightful.
It has.
We've talked about what investors want, how to make great pitches, how to build those relationships.
And so much more.
We've only just started. There's still a lot to uncover in this guide.
It's packed with advice for entrepreneurs.
One thing that I really liked was how much it talked about being authentic.
Oh, yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in all the fancy pitches and presentations.
And forget about being real.
Yeah, investors can tell when someone's being fake.
They can?
They're not just looking for a good business, they're looking for someone they can trust to lead the company. So you have to be genuine, transparent, passionate about what you're doing.
Be yourself.
Let your personality show, be honest about the tough parts.
Honesty builds trust.
Investors are more likely to back someone who's upfront about the risks
Than someone pretending everything's perfect.
It's about finding investors who really get you and your vision.
Who share your values.
And speaking of alignment, there's another thing this guide talks about.
What's that?
Understanding your own risk tolerance.
That's an important one.
It's not just about the investor's risk, it's about being honest with yourself about how much risk you're okay with.
Entrepreneurship is risky.
Yeah, but there are different levels of risk.
You got to make decisions that fit your own comfort level.
That makes sense. Not everyone's a high roller.
Some people are more cautious.
Sometimes the best entrepreneurs are the ones who know when to play it safe.
It's all about strategy.
Understanding the downsides and having backup plans. And sometimes the smartest thing to do is walk away from an opportunity.
Even if it looks good at first.
It's about knowing your limits and sticking to your vision.
There's no one right way to be an entrepreneur.
What works for one person might not work for another.
You have to find your own path.
This whole deep dive has been amazing.
I know, right?
We've learned so much from this guidebook
About investors.
about pitches, about relationships, about risk,
It's been a journey.
and we're still going strong. This guide is full of advice for entrepreneurs who want to grow their business.
Definitely.
Speaking of advice, I'm curious about something this guide made me think about.
Oh, yeah. That's that.
We talked about Dropbox giving early access to their platform.
Right?
What if instead of just talking about your product or service, you could find a way to let investors experience it?
That's a great idea.
It turns the pitch into something real.
Something they remember.
It connects the idea with what it could actually be,
You're inviting investors into your world.
showing them your passion and your belief in what you're building.
And maybe that experience will get them excited too and make them want to be a part of it.
It's a powerful concept, and it goes hand in hand with showing traction, building relationships, and telling a good story. It's all about finding ways to make your vision come to life and get those investors excited. But even with the best pitch and an amazing product, there's still that risk that hangs over every startup, right?
Definitely, that risk is always there.
This guidebook doesn't shy away from that at all.
No, it doesn't. It actually has a whole section on understanding risk tolerance.
Okay.
Not just from the investor side, but from the entrepreneurs too.
I think that's something a lot of people might not think about.
Yeah.
We always hear about investors looking at risk, but it's important for entrepreneurs to be honest about how much risk they're okay with.
Right. Being self-aware is key.
So building a business is always going to be risky, but there are different levels, right?
Absolutely. There's a whole spectrum.
Some people love taking those big risks, and others are more careful.
This guidebook really encourages you to figure out where you fit in
Oh, okay.
and make decisions that match your own risk tolerance.
That makes sense. Not everyone's comfortable with the same level of risk.
Exactly. Some people are just naturally more cautious.
And sometimes the most successful people are the ones who know when to play it a little safer.
It's true. Sometimes the best strategy is to be more conservative,
So it's about making smart decisions that feel right for you.
even if they're not what everyone else is doing.
This guidebook really stresses that there's no one right way to be an entrepreneur.
Definitely what works for one person might not work for another.
You have to find your own way,
And sometimes that means saying no to opportunities.
even if they sound good at first.
It's about knowing your limits and sticking to what you believe in,
It's about building a business that you're proud of.
and one that you can keep going even when things get tough.
That's what separates the successful ones from the rest.
That resilience and that ability to adapt when things don't go as planned.
It's about having that belief in your vision, even when things are hard.
It's about not giving up.
This has been such a fascinating deep dive.
I know, right?
We've learned so much from this guidebook
About investors.
about pitches, about relationships, about risk.
It's been a great journey.
And I really hope our listener feels like they can use this information to start their own journey.
I hope so too.
So the big takeaway from all of this is that getting angel investors isn't just about having a great idea or a perfect pitch.
It's so much more than that.
It's about being prepared, being passionate, and not giving up. And most importantly, staying true to yourself and your vision.
That's what it's all about, finding those investors who believe in your idea and believe in you.
So for our listener out there who's ready to start looking for angel investment, I'll leave you with this. Think back to that Dropbox example.
Okay.
What can you offer to those potential investors?
How can you show them what you're building?
Give them an experience that makes them believe in your vision as much as you do.
Go out there and make it happen.
And until next time, keep diving deep.